You know, I've seen a fair share of flops in my day. There was the flop of 2011, then there was the flop of 2019, and then there was the flop of, oh, sweet baby Jesus on a stick. So you've probably all heard about now the infamous launch of Concord, a team-based shooter game that was essentially dead on arrival. Now, I want to make it perfectly clear to all of you that this is not a review, because I haven't played Concord. I simply want to speak my thoughts on the matter because I've seen a lot of discussions online surrounding this, I guess you could say, catastrophe of a game. Or should I just say a catastrophe of a launch? Because according to several magazines and outlets, Concord is actually not that bad of a game. Supposedly it has relatively solid gameplay mechanics, it's sort of fun, it's pretty graphically alright, but there are just several issues in the way for this game that essentially guaranteed that it was indeed gonna crash and burn at launch. Now, speaking as someone who has not played the game, I do want to mention my own reasons for why I haven't played Concord, and I can't speak for anybody else. My reasons are my own here, but the first reason why I did not want to try this game out is, of course, the 40 bucks. You know, a lot of these hero shooters, they usually allow you to play the game for free, albeit that they then have a bunch of microtransactions in their game that allows the publisher or the studio to stay afloat, keeping the game running. Thing is, the $40 price tag for a game that I was from the beginning very uninterested in is just a really hard sell for me. First of all, when they revealed Concord with its first cinematic reveal trailer, I just did not feel the art style and the general vibe at all. I've seen people say that it kind of looks like Guardians of the Galaxy at home, and I fully agree. It looks like a cheap knockoff of Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm very much tired of the Marvel formula of using quips and jokes and making your game super humorous all the time, and so right off the bat, this game did not speak to me at all. Now, I'm saying this as someone who has maybe 300 or 400 hours in Overwatch 1. I did not play Overwatch 2 because guess what? I grew tired of the hero shooter formula a long time ago. And that brings us to the next point. This game, just as a concept, is so outdated. You've most likely seen this mentioned already, but this game took over 8 years to make.
8 years.
For this to even have a chance to be remotely successful, it should have launched 3 years ago, at least. It's way too late. Thirdly, obviously, you know, we gotta talk about those character designs. I saw some of them and I don't know what they were thinking here. Like, these are some of the worst character designs I've seen in a AAA game in a long time.
Look at this dude.
Just from an outside perspective, as somebody who plays a lot of games, this game just did not speak to me at all. It's just not visually appealing, even if it does seem to have good graphics or relatively good graphics. The gameplay looks really cookie cutter and just like a boring blend of Guardians of the Galaxy and Overwatch, which I'm just not super interested in. Overall, the game is just not appealing, and I can definitely understand why so few people have actually played this game. Because if we head over to Steam Charts, and Steam Charts is a pretty good measuring stick to see how well a game is faring. Now, if we just look at the all-time peak for Concord when it released, it was 660 players. Now, to put that into perspective, the last biggest flop of the year, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which I actually did play, had an all-time peak of 13,459, meaning that Concord doesn't even have a 20th of the amount of players that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League had upon launch, which is insane. This is actually the first time you can actually use a title and thumbnail for your videos where the situation is actually insane. It's pretty much the most absurd situation I've seen so far. This is probably the biggest flop in video game history. I can't think of anything else that has come close to this. This is absolutely insane because the game itself, Concord, supposedly cost them millions upon millions of dollars to make. And if we just assume that all of these 660 people on launch day bought the game, and we're just discounting all the review copies for the game, which are essentially free copies, and we multiply that by 40, which is $40, this game would have sold around $26,400 on day one. Now, obviously, people have been buying this game since it launched in relatively small numbers. Now, even if this game is multi-platform, because it's released on PlayStation as well, combining these numbers together, and if we guesstimate just how many sales it's got, it's just far, far away from what is needed to recoup the costs of actually making this game. This is going to be a massive, massive loss for PlayStation. Now, speaking of that, I do actually feel for the devs here. They've been working for 8 years to make this game, and I'm not sure if all of them are super happy with the end product here. Obviously, they're probably not super happy with the results of the game, with how it's fallen flat on its face on launch day. But it's really unfortunate that some of these people on their dev team have probably worked very hard on this game and trying to make it as good as it can be. Again, if we go back to various reviews and if we check out Steam to see what the reviews are, it seems like it's a relatively okay game just functionally. It might be somewhat fun to some people. And again, I really just wanted to make this video to sort of explain why some people just, or most people just don't want to play this game, and why the majority of gamers just find no interest in this whatsoever. I mean, if we compare to another game here that released this year, Helldivers 2, now, yes, I know that the community is an absolute shambles. Everybody's fighting around this game. There's so much stuff going on with Helldivers 2. But you know, when this game released, and just a short time after, it had an all-time peak of 458,208 players, and that's a multiplayer co-op game as well, or multiplayer shooter. But it had interesting concepts, it had interesting mechanics, it was fun as hell, and still is fun as hell, but you know, it's going through some some growing pains right now. Still, Helldivers 2 has been a massive success for Arrowhead, the studio that made it, as well as Sony. But just from an outside perspective, again, looking at Helldivers 2, when you saw the trailer for Helldivers 2, sure, it was funny, sure, it was silly. It was essentially Starship Troopers cranked up to 11, which is something that a lot of people had asked for many years now. There is a Starship Troopers game coming as well, I know that, but Helldivers 2 was relatively unique to a lot of players. And at the end of the day, when you just look at Concord, it does not look like an interesting game. The art style just does not work. The characters do not look good. Hero shooters is just a boring concept altogether. It just looked like a knockoff Guardians of the Galaxy, at least for me. Now, the question is there any saving this game? And well, possibly, who knows? It depends on what type of content they make for the future. And let's not forget that there are so many games you can play right now. This has been a very packed season for a lot of games coming out. Just the other day, we had World of Warcraft release their newest expansion, War Within, and I've been playing that myself, and I think it's a pretty good expansion, actually, and I'm having fun. We have a bunch of other games that just looks and feels more fun to play at the end of the day. And there are tons more games coming, and I'm afraid this just partly also got lost in the swath of games that has been coming out right now, and it just does not look interesting enough for most people to even want to look into it. But that's just my opinion, of course. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I wrong? Am I right? I'd like to see what you guys have to say about that. Anyway, Mr. Alton signing out.